USS Essex shuddered. 500 feet above, a Japanese bomb detonated. VT proximity fuse. The explosion turned the sky into shrapnel. 300 feet below the flight deck in the Bureau of Ships Observation Station, Commander Willis Augustus Keller pressed his face against the porthole. Through spray and smoke, he counted carriers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 15 American carriers, steaming in formation. Each one launching fighters every 8 minutes, each one carrying 90 aircraft, each one displacing 27,000 tons. Keller's hands shook, not from fear, from vindication. 3 years earlier, in a forgotten office in Washington, he'd written a report. 17 pages, 52 calculations, one conclusion that made admirals laugh. America can build 20 carriers by 1945. They'd called him crazy, a dreamer, a mathematician who didn't understand shipbuilding. Japan had called it impossible. They were wrong. This is the story of Willis Augustus Keller, 42 years old, naval architect, the man who predicted victory before the first shot was fired, the man who understood that wars are won with pencils and slide rules as much as bullets and bombs. The Navy said his math didn't work. He said, "Watch me prove it." And his son, Ensign Thomas Keller, 22 years old, would fly from one of those carriers, would defend ships his father's calculations created, would come home because mathematics said he would. 17 Essex-Class carriers reached the Pacific before Japan expected 6. 0 were sunk. And it all began with a prediction nobody believed. Washington, D.C., October 1940. The Bureau of Ships occupied a grey stone building on Constitution Avenue, 4 stories, 300 offices, 2,000 men calculating how to build a navy that didn't exist yet. Commander Keller's office was on the 3rd floor, window facing north, 12 feet by 10, 1 desk, 1 filing cabinet, 1 blackboard covered in equations. He was 42 but looked older, thinning brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses, shoulders permanently hunched from 20 years bent over drafting tables. His uniform jacket hung on a hook. He worked in shirt sleeves, suspenders. The sleeves rolled to his elbows. MIT, Naval Architecture, class of 1920, top of his class. 20 years analyzing American shipyard capacity. 20 years watching Japan build carriers while America built excuses. On his desk, photographs. His wife Margaret, his son Thomas, 20 years old, University of Virginia, studying literature, talking about becoming a teacher. The war in Europe was 16 months old. France had fallen. Britain was burning. America was neutral. But Keller knew. Everyone in the Bureau knew. War was coming. The only question was when, and whether America would be ready. Keller pulled a fresh sheet of paper from his drawer, picked up his pencil. At the top he wrote, "Projected American carrier construction capacity, wartime scenario." He started with shipyards. Newport News Shipbuilding, Virginia, capable of building 1 carrier every 36 months under current conditions. But with 3-shift operation, with streamlined design, with priority materials, allocation 20 months, maybe 18. Brooklyn Navy Yard, same calculation, same result. Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, Bethlehem Steel Quincy, Bethlehem Steel Fall River, 5 major yards, each capable of simultaneous construction if the design was standardized. He wrote numbers, added them, checked them, added them again. The math was undeniable. If war came, if America committed to mass production, if the Navy abandoned custom designs and built 1 standardized carrier class, 20 carriers by 1945, maybe more. Keller sat back, stared at the number. 20. Japan had 10 carriers. America had 3. Lexington, Saratoga, Ranger, 2 more building. Yorktown, Enterprise, 36 months from keel to commissioning. The Navy's current plan assumed they'd build 2 carriers per year. By 1945, they'd have 11 total. Japan would have 15. The arithmetic said America would lose. But Keller's arithmetic said something different. He worked through the evening. Margaret expected him at 7. He called, told her he'd be late. She sighed. She always sighed. 20 years of late nights. 20 years of just one more calculation. By midnight, the report was finished. 17 pages. Shipyard capacity analysis. Steel production projections. Labor force calculations. Construction timeline estimates. The conclusion was on page 17. If war begins in 1941, and if the proposed standardized fleet carrier design is adopted, American shipyards can produce 20 to 24 fleet carriers by 1945. This estimate assumes 3-shift operations, priority materials allocation, and simultaneous construction across 5 major facilities. Current Japanese production capacity is estimated at 6 to 8 carriers in the same period. Strategic advantage, America 3-to-1 ratio minimum. He signed it. Commander W. A. Keller, Naval Architecture Division, Bureau of Ships. Submitted it to his section chief at 0800 the next morning. The section chief read it, looked up, looked back down at the paper. Willis, this math is fantasy. Sir, I've checked it 4 times. 20 carriers. Japan started building their navy in 1921. They have 10 carriers and 20 years of experience. We have 3 carriers and you think we can build 20 more in 4 years. If we standardize the design, if we commit to mass production, the shipyard capacity exists. The section chief put the report down. The capacity doesn't exist. The steel doesn't exist. The workers don't exist. The expertise doesn't exist. It will exist if we prepare now. Willis. The section chief's voice softened. You're a good engineer, but this... He tapped the report. This is wishful thinking. I can't send this up the chain. The admirals will laugh us out of the building. Then let them laugh. My calculations are correct. The calculations assume everything goes perfectly. War production assumes perfect conditions. Ships don't get built in perfect conditions. Keller took the report back. I'm submitting it anyway. I'm advising against it. Noted. The report went to the Bureau of Construction and Repair, then to the office of Rear Admiral Samuel Robinson, Chief of the Bureau of Ships. 3 weeks later, Keller was summoned. Admiral Robinson's office was on the 4th floor. Corner office. Windows facing the Washington Monument. Oak desk. American flag. Naval jack. Photographs of Robinson shaking hands with presidents. Robinson was 63. White hair. 3 stars. 40 years in the Navy. He'd commanded destroyers in the Great War. Now he commanded desks. He held Keller's report. Didn't invite Keller to sit. Commander, explain this. Sir, it's an analysis of our wartime carrier construction capacity. I can read, Commander. 20 carriers by 1945. You think we can build 20 fleet carriers in 4 years? If war begins in 41, yes, sir. Japan has 10 carriers now. They'll have 15 by 45. You think we can build 20 to 24, sir? The shipyard capacity supports it. Robinson dropped the report on his desk. Commander Keller, I appreciate initiative, but this report is based on assumptions that don't exist in the real world. You're assuming unlimited steel, unlimited labor, unlimited funding, perfect conditions. No, sir. But if war comes, those conditions can be created. Can be created. Might be created. Could be created. Commander, I need facts, not optimism. Sir, the facts are in the report. The shipyards exist, the steel mills exist, the labor force exists. What doesn't exist yet is the commitment to use them. Robinson's jaw tightened. If you were an admiral commander, you'd understand that commitment requires more than mathematics. It requires strategy, resources, political will. War production doesn't happen in ideal circumstances. Keller's hands clenched behind his back. Sir, with respect, the Japanese are building carriers right now. Shokaku, Zuikaku, they'll be operational next year. If we don't start now, we'll be outnumbered for the entire war. If there's a war. Sir, There will be a war. Silence. Robinson picked up the report. For a moment, Keller thought he'd throw it in the trash. Instead, Robinson opened his desk drawer, put the report inside. I'm not dismissing this, Commander, but I'm not endorsing it either. If circumstances change, I'll reconsider. Until then, you will return to your assigned duties and you will not submit unsolicited strategic analyses. Are we clear? Yes, sir. Dismissed. Keller saluted, turned, reached the door. Robinson's voice stopped him. Commander, off the record. If your math is right, if we can build 20 carriers, how would you do it? Keller turned back. One design, sir. Standardized. Same hull, same propulsion, same armament, same everything. Build it in sections. Prefabricate components. 5 shipyards building simultaneously. 20 months from keel to commissioning. Mass production, sir, like Ford builds cars. The Navy doesn't build ships like Ford builds cars. Maybe it should, sir. Robinson almost smiled. Almost. Get out of my office, Commander. Keller left, but the idea didn't leave him. That night, Keller sat at his kitchen table. Margaret was washing dishes. Thomas was upstairs studying. The radio played Benny Goodman. Keller had blueprints spread across the table. Not official blueprints. Personal sketches. A standardized fleet carrier. 27,000 tons. 870 feet long. 90 aircraft. 12 5-inch guns. Armor. Speed. Range. Everything the Navy needed. Built faster than anyone thought possible. Margaret dried her hands. Sat down across from him. They rejected it. They filed it. That's rejection. Keller didn't look up from the blueprints. The calculations are sound, Maggie. The calculations are always sound with you, but people aren't equations. The Navy isn't mathematics. Ships are mathematics. Steel is mathematics. Time is mathematics. Margaret reached across the table, put her hand over his pencil. Gus, you've been doing this for 20 years, calculating, planning, predicting, and for 20 years the Navy has ignored you. Maybe it's time to accept that. I can't. Why not? He finally looked at her. Because war is coming, and when it comes, Thomas will go. And if I'm right, if we can build these carriers, he'll have air cover. He'll have support. He'll come home. But if I'm wrong, if the Navy waits, if they build 2 carriers a year like they're planning, he'll be out there alone. Margaret's hand tightened on his. Thomas wants to be a teacher. Thomas is 20 years old and war is coming. He'll enlist. You know he will. Every boy his age will. Upstairs, Thomas's radio played Glenn Miller. Margaret stood. I'm going to bed. Don't stay up all night. I won't. He stayed up all night. By morning, he'd designed every detail of his standardized carrier. Hull structure, engine placement, hangar configuration, armament layout, everything modular, everything reproducible. He called it the Essex-Class. He didn't know yet that the name would become the most successful warship class in history. He just knew the numbers worked. 3 months later, January 1941. Keller was at his desk when the call came. Rear Admiral Edward Cochrane wanted to see him. Cochrane was Robinson's deputy, 58 years old, career engineering officer, Annapolis class of '06, reputation for getting things built. Keller reported to Cochrane's office at 1400 hours. Cochrane's office was smaller than Robinson's, no windows, but the desk was covered in blueprints, shipyard reports, production schedules. Cochrane looked up when Keller entered. Didn't waste time. Commander, I read your report. The one about 20 carriers. Yes, sir. Admiral Robinson filed it, didn't endorse it, didn't reject it, just filed it. Yes, sir. I pulled it out of his filing cabinet. Keller's pulse quickened. Cochrane tapped the report. Your calculations assume we start building now. April, you wrote. That's 3 months away. Yes, sir. To hit 20 carriers by 45, we need to start in April 41. And if we don't start until after war begins, then we'll be behind, sir. Japan will have 18 months head start. Cochrane leaned back. Commander, let me ask you a hypothetical. If I told you the Navy was going to approve 1 new carrier class, 1 standardized design, Mass production. And if I told you that you'd be responsible for the design, could you deliver? Keller's mouth went dry. Sir, I already have the design. Cochrane smiled. I know. I saw your sketches in the back of your report. 27,000 tons, 870 feet. Very clever. Sir, if you're offering... I'm not offering anything, Commander. I'm asking a question. Could you deliver? Yes, sir. 20 months from keel to commissioning. Modular construction. 5 shipyards, 20 carriers by 45. Cochrane opened his desk drawer, pulled out a folder, handed it across the desk. These are the preliminary approval documents for CV-9, fleet carrier, to be built at Newport News, budget approved, materials allocated. The only thing missing is the final design. Keller opened the folder. His hands shook. CV-9, the designation for the 9th American carrier. Sir, is this... That's your Essex-Class commander. Congratulations. Keel laying is scheduled for April 28th. You have 3 months to finalize the design. Can you do it? Yes, sir. Good. Because if you're wrong, if your 20-month timeline is fantasy, we'll have wasted 2 years and millions of dollars. And I'll make sure everyone knows whose fault it was. Understood, sir. One more thing, Commander. This conversation never happened. As far as the Navy is concerned, I designed the Essex-Class. You're just the architect who made my vision real. Clear. Crystal clear, sir. Good. Now get out of here and build me a carrier. Keller left, walked down the hallway, down the stairs, out into the January cold. He stood on Constitution Avenue, looked up at the grey Washington sky. His report had predicted this, calculated it. The numbers had said it was possible. But standing there holding the approval folder, he realized something. Predicting victory and delivering it were 2 different things. Now he had to prove his calculations worked. April 28, 1941, Newport News, Virginia. The shipyard stretched along the James River. 12 building ways, 4 dry docks, 20,000 workers, the largest private shipyard in America. Building Way 11. That's where they laid CV-9's keel. Keller stood on the platform. Behind him, a crowd. Shipyard executives, Navy brass, workers in coveralls and hard hats, photographers from Life magazine. In front of him on the building way, the first keel plate, 72 feet long, 20 feet wide, 4 inches of American steel. The yard superintendent read from a prepared statement. On this day, April 28, 1941, we lay the keel for CV-9, a fleet carrier of new and advanced design. May God bless this ship and all who sail in her. A crane lowered the keel plate. Workers guided it into position. Welders moved in. Arc lights flashed. Sparks flew. The smell of hot metal, the sound of hammers. The beginning. Keller watched the first welds cool, each one a promise. Each one a calculation made real. 27,000 tons of steel, 90 aircraft, 1,200 men, built in 20 months. The numbers said it was possible. Now the shipyard had to prove it. Keller stayed all day, watched them lay 5 more keel plates, watched the hull start to take shape. Long, angular, functional, beautiful. By sunset, the skeleton of CV-9 stretched 60 feet along Building Way 11. 1 day of work, 600 days to go. Keller wrote to Thomas that night, told him about the keel laying, told him about the design, told him this ship might change everything. Thomas wrote back 3 weeks later. Dad, I'm enlisting. I know you and Mom wanted me to finish school, but if this war you keep talking about happens, I want to fly. I want to defend ships like the one you're building. I'm joining the Navy. Keller read the letter twice, put it down, picked it up, read it again. Margaret found him in his study, saw the letter. No. Maggie. No, he's 20 years old. He has 2 more years of school. He wants to be a teacher. He wants to serve. He wants to be like you. And look where that got you. 42 years old and still trying to prove you're right. Keller looked at her. I am right. CV-9 proves it. CV-9 is Steel Gus. Thomas is our son. He had no answer for that. Thomas enlisted June 1941. Naval Aviation Cadet Program. Primary flight training at Naval Air Station, Pensacola. Keller got updates. Letters. Thomas loved flying. Thomas soloed after 8 hours. Thomas was top of his class. Keller worked on CV-9, traveled to Newport News every 2 weeks, checked progress, verified construction. The hull was taking shape. Ribs, frames, bulkheads. The ship rising from Building Way 11 like a steel cathedral. By November, the hull was 70% complete. The flight deck structure was beginning. The island was prefabricated, waiting to be lifted into place. 20 months from keel to commissioning, they were on schedule. And then December 7th happened. Keller was in Washington. Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. He was at his office, catching up on paperwork. The Bureau of Ships was quiet on Sundays. Just a few duty officers, the sound of typewriters echoing down empty halls. At 13:45, someone knocked on his door. A lieutenant, face pale. "Sir, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor 2 hours ago. The Pacific Fleet. They're saying 8 battleships hit, maybe sunk." Keller stood. 8 battleships. "Yes, sir. Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, California, Nevada, Maryland, Tennessee, Pennsylvania. All hit. Some capsized. Casualties in the thousands." The lieutenant left. Keller sat back down, stared at his desk. 8 battleships. The Pacific Fleet. Gone. His phone rang. Admiral Cochrane. "Keller, get to the Navy Department, now. We're meeting in 1 hour." The Navy Department building. 1400 hours. The conference room was packed. Admirals, captains, commanders, everyone in Washington who wore a uniform. Admiral Harold Stark stood at the head of the table, Chief of Naval Operations, 4 stars, face carved from granite. "Gentlemen, as of 07:55 Hawaiian time, the Empire of Japan attacked the United States Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. Current reports indicate 8 battleships damaged or sunk, 3 destroyers sunk, 4 cruisers damaged, 188 aircraft destroyed. Casualty estimates are over 2,000 dead." Silence. "The Pacific Fleet is crippled. We have 3 carriers in the Pacific: Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga. That is our entire carrier force west of California. Japan has 10 carriers. They now have naval superiority in the Pacific, and we cannot contest it." More silence. "Effective immediately, all naval construction is priority 1. We need ships. We need them fast. We need them now." Admiral Cochrane raised his hand. "Sir, CV-9, Essex-Class, currently under construction at Newport News, 8 months into a 20-month build schedule. When can she be operational?" "December 42 if we maintain schedule." "That's 13 months away. We need carriers now, not next year." "Sir, we have 3 carriers in the Pacific. They weren't at Pearl." "They're operational. But CV-9 will be our first new fleet carrier, and she's designed for mass production. If Essex proves the concept, we can build 20 more." Stark looked at Cochrane. 20 carriers. Where have I heard that number? Cochrane glanced at Keller. Didn't answer. Stark turned to the room. "Gentlemen, Japan thinks they crippled us. They sank our battleships. They think we'll negotiate. They think we'll seek peace. They're wrong. We're going to build a navy that makes Pearl Harbor look like a training exercise. Every shipyard, every steel mill, every worker. War production starts now." The meeting lasted 4 hours. Priorities, schedules, resources, everything redirected to shipbuilding. Keller sat in the back, took notes, didn't speak, but his mind was racing. Japan had attacked. The war he'd predicted was here. The timeline he'd calculated was live. CV-9 had been building for 8 months. 12 months to go. 20 months total. Exactly as he'd predicted. The calculations were holding. After the meeting, Cochrane pulled Keller aside. "Your report, the one about 20 carriers. How fast can we build them?" 20 months per ship, sir. But if we start more keels now, they'll overlap. CV-10 could launch in 43. CV-11 in 43. By mid-44, we could have 8 or 9 operational. 8 or 9. Japan has 10. Japan has 10 now, sir, but they can't replace losses. Their shipyards are slower, their industrial capacity is smaller. Every carrier we build they can't match. You're betting American industry beats Japanese experience. I'm betting American arithmetic beats Japanese assumptions, sir. Cochrane nodded. Get back to Newport News. I want CV9 finished on schedule, not 1 day late. Because if you're right, that ship proves we can win this war. And if you're wrong, we just lost a year we couldn't afford. Understood, sir. Keller went back to his office, called Newport News, talked to the yard superintendent, confirmed construction schedule, everything on track. Then he called home. Margaret answered. Gus, we heard about Pearl Harbor. Is Thomas? Thomas is in Pensacola. He's safe. Flight training. He's not deployed yet. Thank God. Maggie, I need to tell you something. I'm going to be in Newport News most of next year. CV9 needs to finish on schedule. I'll come home when I can. But the ship is more important than your family. The ship will protect our son. Silence on the line. Come home safe, Gus. I will. He hung up, looked at his desk, at the blueprints, at the calculations, at 20 years of predictions coming true. His arithmetic had been right. Now he had to deliver. Newport News, December 1941 through December 1942. 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days. Keller moved into a boarding house 3 blocks from the shipyard. Ate breakfast at 05:30. Walked to Building Way 11 by 0600. Stayed until the last shift ended at midnight. 7 days a week. CV9 rose from the building way like a city built sideways, the hull complete, the flight deck going on, the island mounted, the hangar deck fitted out, catapults installed, arresting gear tested, compartments sealed, systems integrated. 27,000 tons of American steel becoming a warship. Keller knew every inch, every frame, every weld, every rivet. He inspected the work, caught mistakes, approved fixes, pushed schedules. The workers knew him, called him the commander. Some liked him, some didn't, but they all respected the schedule. 20 months keel to commissioning, not 21, not 19, 20. The numbers had to be exact. In April 1942, they launched CV9. The hull slid down Building Way 11 into the James River. 15,000 people watched. Champagne broke across the bow. The ship floated. They christened her USS Essex. Keller stood on the pier, watched his design sit in the water. 27,000 tons displacing the river. The hull painted grey. The flight deck empty. The island rising like a watchtower. She was real. Mathematics made steel. By July, Essex was alongside the fitting-out pier. Final systems installed. Ammunition loaded. Aircraft hoisted aboard. Crew reporting. 1,200 men. Most of them had never seen a carrier before. They trained. Damage control drills. Fire drills. Man overboard drills. Flight operations practice. Again. 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 In August, Keller got a letter from Thomas. Dad, I graduated flight school. I'm assigned to VF5, F4F Wildcats. We're getting F6Fs next year. Hellcats, 6 50 caliber guns. They say it's built to kill Zeros. I'll be operational by spring 43. They're saying I might be assigned to one of the new carriers, maybe yours. Wouldn't that be something? Keller read the letter on the fitting-out pier. Looked up at Essex, at the flight deck his son might land on, at the ship he'd calculated to keep Thomas alive. The arithmetic was personal now. December 1942. Sea trials. Essex left Norfolk, steamed into the Atlantic, ran every system, every test, every scenario. High-speed turns, emergency stops, catapult launches, arrested landings, damage control exercises, anti-aircraft firing, everything. The ship performed exactly as designed. 27,000 tons, 90 aircraft capacity, 33 knots, 872 feet of flight deck, 12 5-inch guns, 44 40mm and 46 20mm anti-aircraft weapons. Every specification met, every calculation validated. On December 31st, 1942, USS Essex was commissioned into the United States Navy. Captain Donald Duncan read the orders. "Hoist the colors, man the ship, and bring her to life." The crew saluted. The flag rose. Essex became alive. Keller stood in the crowd, civilian clothes, no uniform, no recognition. Admiral Cochrane's words echoed. "As far as the Navy is concerned, I designed the Essex-Class." That was fine. Keller didn't need credit. He needed the ship to work. He needed his calculations to hold. He needed 19 more just like her. After the ceremony, Cochrane found him. 20 months, Commander. Exactly 20 months. You were right. One ship doesn't prove the concept, sir. No, but 4 more keels are already laid. Yorktown, Intrepid, Hornet, Wasp. All Essex-class, all following your timeline. By end of 43, we'll have 6 operational. By mid-44, 13. And Japan? Japan has 10 carriers. They lost 4 at Midway in June. They're building replacements, but their construction time is 30+ months. They can't match our pace. Keller did the calculations in his head. If America built at 20 months per ship and Japan built at 33 months, the ratio inverted fast. We'll outnumber them by 44. If your numbers hold. They will, sir. Cochrane looked at Essex, at the grey hull, at the empty flight deck. She's leaving for the Pacific next month. Joining the fight. Your son. Is he? Flight training. F-6F Hellcats. He'll be operational by spring. Might end up on an Essex-class. Might end up on this one, sir. Cochrane nodded, walked away. Keller stayed. Watched Essex sit in the harbour. Watched the crew move across the deck. Watched the ship he'd calculated become the ship that would fight. His arithmetic had held for 20 months. Now it had to hold through war. But he didn't know yet. Didn't know that in 18 months he'd stand in Essex's observation station, 300 feet below the flight deck. Philippine Sea, June 19, 1944. Counting carriers through a porthole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 15. Mathematics made steel, and steel would make victory. Tokyo, January 1942. The Imperial Japanese Navy General Staff occupied a concrete building near the Imperial Palace. 4 stories, reinforced, guarded. Inside, men in white uniforms calculated how to win a war they'd just started. Captain Nakajima Tadashi sat at his desk on the 3rd floor. Naval Intelligence. 40 years old. Annapolis exchange student, 1923. He spoke English. He understood Americans, or thought he did. On his desk reports, intelligence summaries, reconnaissance photographs, signal intercepts, everything the Imperial Navy knew about American carrier construction. Nakajima's job was simple. Predict American naval strength. Calculate when Japan's advantage would disappear. Determine how long they had to win. He'd been working the problem since Pearl Harbor. The data was clear. America had 3 carriers in the Pacific. Enterprise, Lexington, Saratoga, 2 more building. Hornet, Yorktown. Expected completion mid-1942. 5 carriers total by summer. Japan had 10 carriers, 6 fleet carriers, 4 light carriers, experienced crews, combat-tested, superior. The advantage was overwhelming. Nakajima wrote his analysis, careful, precise, the way Annapolis had taught him. American carrier construction capacity is limited by shipyard availability and construction complexity. Current evidence suggests maximum production of 2 fleet carriers per year. By 1944, the United States Navy will field 6 fleet carriers total. This force can be contained by our 10-carrier force and land-based aviation support. He signed the report. Submitted it to the combined fleet staff. The report circulated. Reached Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's desk aboard the battleship Nagato. Yamamoto read it. Said nothing. Filed it. He'd spent 3 years in America. 1925 to 1928. Naval attaché. He'd seen Detroit, Pittsburgh, Gary. He'd seen American factories. He knew what American industry could do when motivated, but he also knew his staff. They believed in Japanese superiority, in Bushido, in spiritual strength, overcoming material weakness. Nakajima's report told them what they wanted to hear, that America was slow, that Japan had time. Yamamoto didn't believe it, but he didn't challenge it either. What was the point? The war had started. The path was set. Nakajima never knew his report was wrong by a factor of 3, never knew that in Newport News, Virginia CV-9 was already 8 months into construction, never knew that American arithmetic was faster than Japanese assumptions. He would find out, eventually, when it was too late. Newport News, January 1943. Essex had been commissioned 1 week. She sat at the pier, stores loading, ammunition coming aboard, fuel tanks filling, the crew settling in. Keller stood on the pier, watched the organized chaos, cranes lifting, trucks backing up, men carrying, everything moving with purpose. Behind him, Building Way 11 was active again. A new keel, CV-10, Yorktown, 2nd Essex-Class carrier, laid down December 19th, 42. The assembly line was starting. Admiral Cochrane walked up beside him. Essex leaves for the Pacific next week. Shakedown cruise, then Pearl Harbor. She's ready, sir. You sound certain. The numbers say she's ready. Cochrane smiled. Commander, you and your mathematics. Do you ever trust anything else? Arithmetic doesn't lie, sir. People do. Systems fail. Ships sink. Essex won't sink. How can you be sure? Keller turned, looked at Cochrane. Because I calculated every stress point, every load, every failure mode. The compartmentalization can handle 3 torpedo hits. The flight deck can take 2 bomb hits and still operate. The damage control systems are redundant. She's designed to survive. Designed to? But will she? Yes, sir. Cochrane looked at the ship. Your son. Where is he? Advanced training. Jacksonville, F6F Hellcats. He'll be combat ready by spring. And if he's assigned to Essex... Keller didn't answer immediately. Watched the crane lift a pallet of 5-inch shells. Watched them swing aboard. Watched them disappear into the ship's magazine. Then he'll fly from the ship I built, and the calculations say he'll come home. You're betting his life on your numbers. I'm betting his life on American industry, sir. Japan can't match it. The arithmetic proves it. Cochrane pulled a folder from his briefcase, handed it to Keller. Speaking of arithmetic, current production schedule. Keller opened it, read, CV-9 Essex, commissioned December 42, CV-10 Yorktown, keel laid December 42, expected commissioning April 43, CV-11 Intrepid, keel laid December 42, expected commissioning August 43, CV-12 Hornet, keel laid August 42, expected commissioning November 43, CV-13 Franklin, keel laid December 42, expected commissioning January 44, 5 carriers, 5 different shipyards, all building simultaneously. By end of 43, we'll have 5 Essex-Class carriers operational, Cochrane said. By mid-44, 9. By end of 44, 13. Keller did the calculations. Japan lost 4 carriers at Midway, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. They're building replacements. Taiho launched last year, won't commission until 44. Unryu class starting construction, maybe 3 more by 45. So by mid-44 they'll have 9 carriers total. We'll have 13. If your timeline holds. It will hold, sir. Cochrane took the folder back. Essex proves you were right about 1 ship. 13 carriers will prove you were right about the war. He walked away. Keller stayed. Looked at Essex, at Building Way 11 where Yorktown was rising, at Building Way 7 where another keel would be laid next month. The numbers were multiplying. Japan had bet on early victory, on American hesitation, on negotiations. They'd calculated wrong. America wasn't negotiating. America was building. And arithmetic was relentless. Keller returned to Norfolk in February. His job at Newport News was done. Essex was alive. Yorktown's keel was already laid. Admiral Cochrane reassigned him. Bureau of Ships Headquarters. Coordinate production across all yards. Track timelines. Ensure the calculations held. But in March, Cochrane had one more assignment. You designed Essex. You should see her fight. Pacific deployment. Observation duty. 2 months. Keller went. USS Essex. Pacific Ocean. March 1943. The ship cut through blue water at 28 knots. Flight operations. The deck alive with movement. Yellow shirts, red shirts, blue shirts, white shirts, each color a job. Each job essential. On the bridge, Captain Duncan watched the controlled chaos. F-6F Hellcats launching. 30 seconds between launches. Catapult shot. Jet blast deflector down. Next plane spotted. Deflector up. Catapult tension. Launch. Again. 36 fighters in the air in 18 minutes. Exactly as designed. On the observation platform below, Keller watched through binoculars. Bureau of Ships observer. Civilian status? No authority. Just eyes. But his eyes saw everything. The catapult stroke. The holdback release. The aircraft acceleration. Every mechanical system performing exactly as calculated. Stress, strain, load, all within specifications. His arithmetic was holding in combat conditions. An air operations officer approached. Lieutenant Commander James Flatley, Air Group Commander, 30 years old, 2 years combat experience. Mr. Keller, your ship performs better than anything I've flown from. It's not my ship, Commander. Everyone says you designed it. Admiral Cochrane designed it. I just did the calculations. Flatley smiled. The calculations work. Flight deck operations are 40% more efficient than Yorktown-class. We can sustain higher sortie rates, longer missions. The fuel capacity alone adds 2 days operational time. Good. Good, Mr. Keller, this ship is going to change carrier warfare. If the Navy builds more of these, Japan can't compete. The Navy has 16 more Essex-Class on order, 17 carriers total by war's end if the schedule holds. Flatley's eyes widened. 17 commissioned by war's end commander. Japan has 6 carriers left after Midway. 9 carriers, but 3 are light carriers, and their construction time is 33 months versus our 20 months. They can't replace losses fast enough. Flatley looked out at the ocean, at the Hellcats returning, at the arresting wires catching them, at the coordinated dance of recovery operations. You're saying we've already won? I'm saying the arithmetic indicates a favorable outcome. That's the most Navy way of saying we're going to crush them I've ever heard. Keller almost smiled. Almost. That night he wrote to Thomas. Told him Essex was performing perfectly. Told him the ship could handle anything Japan threw at it. Told him to focus on training and trust the ships his father's generation was building. Thomas wrote back in April. Dad, I'm operational. Assigned to VF5. We're getting ready to deploy. They won't tell us which carrier yet, but I'm hearing rumors about a new ship. CV-10, Yorktown, Essex-Class, same as yours. Dad, if I get assigned there, I'll be flying from a ship you designed. That would be something. Keller read the letter in his Norfolk hotel room after returning from the Pacific. Put it down, picked it up, read it again. VF5, Yorktown, Essex-Class. His calculations had said this might happen. His son flying from his design, the arithmetic becoming personal. He'd built these ships to win the war, but also to bring Thomas home. Now the numbers had to prove themselves. Pacific Ocean, June 1943. 3 Essex-Class carriers were operational. Essex, Yorktown, Lexington, the new Lexington, CV-16, not the old Lexington sunk at Coral Sea. They operated as Task Force 15, 3 carriers, 12 destroyers, 4 cruisers, moving north toward the Solomon Islands. On Yorktown's flight deck, Ensign Thomas Keller sat in his F-6F Hellcat. Engine running, canopy closed, waiting for launch. 22 years old, 140 pounds, 5'8", His father's build, his mother's eyes. 6 months ago, he'd been at University of Virginia studying Hemingway. Now he was sitting in 6 tons of aircraft, waiting to launch into combat. The yellow shirt signaled. Full throttle. Brakes. The catapult officer checked, signaled, crouched, touched the deck. The catapult fired. 2 seconds of crushing acceleration, 0 to 90 miles per hour. The Hellcat shot off the bow, dropped toward the water, clawed for altitude, climbed. Thomas breathed. First combat launch. The formation assembled. 12 Hellcats, 12 Dauntless dive bombers, 8 Avenger torpedo bombers, 32 aircraft heading toward Munda airfield. The mission brief had been simple. Suppress enemy air power, destroy aircraft on ground, return to ship. Thomas flew wing on his section leader, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, 3 years combat experience, 7 kills, steady hands, Webb's voice on radio. Stay tight, watch your spacing, zeros will bounce from above, don't chase them, don't dogfight, boom and zoom, speed is your advantage. Roger. They reached Munda at Angels 15,000 feet, below the airfield, revetments, aircraft parked, zeros, Betty's, Val's, Webb's section dove, Thomas followed, the Hellcat accelerated, 800 feet per second, the airspeed indicator wound up, 200 knots, 250, 300, the ground rushed up, revetments, aircraft, Thomas centered the sight, fired, 6 50 caliber machine guns, 3,000 rounds per minute combined, tracers, every 5th round. The zero below exploded. Thomas pulled up, 6 Gs, the grey curtain at the edges of vision, blood draining from his head. Pull, pull, altitude. Behind him, Munda burned. They returned to Yorktown 90 minutes later. All aircraft recovered. 0 losses. In the ready room, Webb debriefed. Good work. Keller, that was your first kill. Yes, sir. How do you feel? Thomas thought about it. About the zero exploding, about the man inside who never had a chance to eject, about the fact that he'd just killed someone and felt nothing except the satisfaction of hitting the target. I feel fine, sir. Good. You'll do it again tomorrow. They did it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. By August, Thomas had 6 kills, 4 zeros, 2 Bettys. He wrote his father. Dad, Yorktown is everything you said. She handles perfectly. The systems work. The damage control drills pay off. We took some AA fire last week, 40mm. Hit the flight deck. The armor stopped it. Minor damage. We were operational again in an hour. You built these ships right. Keller read the letter at his desk in Norfolk, put his head in his hands. 6 kills. His son had killed 6 men, was becoming good at it. And it was working because the ship Keller designed kept Thomas alive long enough to get good at killing. His numbers were working, but the cost was becoming real. Tokyo, March 1944. Captain Nakajima sat at his desk, reading reports, combat summaries, intelligence estimates. The war was not going as predicted. Midway had been catastrophic. 4 carriers lost in 1 day. The strategic balance inverted. But the combined fleet staff had assured him, "We'll build replacements. We'll train new pilots. The balance will restore." It hadn't. American carrier sightings were increasing. Task forces with multiple carriers. 3, 4, 5 carriers operating together. The numbers didn't make sense. Nakajima pulled his 1942 analysis, the one predicting 6 American carriers by 1944. Current date, March 1944. Current American carrier count according to reconnaissance and signal intelligence. He wrote them down. CV-9, Essex. CV-10, Yorktown. CV-11, Intrepid. CV-12, Hornet. CV-13, Franklin. CV-14, Ticonderoga. CV-15, Randolph. CV-16, Lexington. CV-17, Bunker Hill. CV-18, Wasp. 9 Essex-Class carriers. All operational. All in the Pacific. Plus light carriers. Independence-class. Converted cruiser hulls. Fast. Maneuverable. Total American carrier strength. 18 carriers. His prediction had been 6. The error was 300%. Nakajima stared at the numbers, checked them, rechecked them. The intelligence was solid: photographic reconnaissance, signal intercepts, combat reports. America had built 18 carriers in 2 years. Impossible. He calculated Japanese production. Since Pearl Harbor, Japan had commissioned 3 new fleet carriers: Hyo, Junyo, Taiho, currently building 3 Unryu-class. Expected completion 1945. Total Japanese carrier strength 9 carriers. America had 18. The balance hadn't just inverted, it had collapsed. Nakajima wrote an updated assessment. His hands shook slightly. American carrier strength now exceeds projections by 300%. Essex-class vessels demonstrate capabilities superior to our fleet carriers. Air group sizes reported at 80 to 100 aircraft per carrier compared to our 60 to 75. Defensive armament reported as exceptionally heavy. These vessels appear purpose-built for sustained offensive operations. If reports are accurate, the mathematical basis for our naval strategy requires fundamental revision. He submitted the report. It went up the chain, reached Combined Fleet Headquarters, reached Admiral Suemu Toyoda's desk. Toyoda read it, looked at his staff. "Is this confirmed?" "Sir, reconnaissance confirms multiple Essex-class carriers operational. Signal intelligence confirms construction of additional units. The Americans appear to have implemented mass production techniques." "How many total?" "Intelligence estimates 13 Essex-class carriers by mid-1944, sir." 13. Toyoda looked at the map, at the Pacific, at the shrinking perimeter of Japanese control. "And our carrier strength?" 9 carriers, sir. 3 more under construction." Toyoda did the calculations. 13 versus 9. The Americans would have numerical superiority. And if the Essex-class carriers were as capable as reports suggested, qualitative superiority too. Recommendations. His staff was silent. Finally, one captain spoke. "Sir, we must engage the American carrier force while we still have operational capability. Force a decisive battle, attrite their strength." "Where?" "The Marianas, sir. When they invade, they'll need carrier support. We'll know where they are." Toyoda nodded. "Prepare plans for a carrier engagement in the Philippine Sea. We'll commit everything: 9 carriers, 450 aircraft. If we can destroy their carrier force, we can restore the balance." The staff saluted. Nakajima said nothing, but he knew. The arithmetic didn't support victory. 9 carriers versus 13. 450 aircraft versus 900 plus. Japan was going to fight a battle the numbers said they'd lose. But orders were orders. Calculations were calculations. Strategy was strategy. He went back to his desk, updated his files, waited for the inevitable. Norfolk, Virginia, May 1944. Keller stood on the pier, watching CV-18 Wasp commission, the 10th Essex-class carrier, 20 months from keel to commissioning, exactly on schedule. Behind him, building ways held 3 more hulls: CV-19 Hancock, CV-20 Bennington, CV-21 Boxer, all progressing on timeline. Admiral Cochrane stood beside him. 13 operational by June, 17 by end of year if the schedule holds." "It will hold, sir." "You're certain?" "I've been tracking construction for 3 years. Every ship has commissioned within 2 weeks of projected date. The system works." Cochrane nodded. "The Navy's ordering 6 more. CV-31 through CV-36. Your design is now the standard American fleet carrier." "How many total, sir?" "If the war lasts through 46, we'll have built 24 Essex-class carriers." 24. Keller had predicted 20. His calculations had been conservative. "And Japan?" 9 carriers. They lost Taiho last week. Submarine. They're down to 8, building 3 more, but they won't be ready until 45. 8 Japanese carriers. 13 American carriers operational now. 17 by end of year. The mathematics of victory were undeniable. There's going to be a major carrier battle soon, Cochrane said. The Marianas. Japan's pulling everything together, last stand of their carrier force. How many of our carriers will participate? Task Force 58, 15 carriers, 7 Essex-Class, 8 light carriers, 956 aircraft total. Keller calculated. Against? Intelligence says 9 Japanese carriers, 473 aircraft. The ratio was 2 to 1, in carriers, in aircraft, in everything. It's not going to be close, sir. No, it's not. Your arithmetic predicted this 3 years ago. Japan can't match our production, can't replace losses, can't train pilots fast enough. They're fighting a war the numbers say they already lost. Keller looked at Wasp, at the grey hull, at the flight deck, at the 11th ship that proved his calculations. My son is out there, on Yorktown. I know. If the battle happens, he'll be in it. Yes. The numbers say we'll win. The numbers say a lot of things, Keller. Doesn't mean people don't die. Keller was quiet. Cochrane put his hand on Keller's shoulder. Your ships are good. Your design works. Essex-class carriers are the reason we're winning this war. But ships don't fight alone. Men fight. Men die. Your son knows that. I know. Do you, or do you just trust the arithmetic? Keller didn't answer. Cochrane walked away. Keller stayed on the pier, watched Wasp, watched the crew board, watched the ship come alive. 24 Essex-class carriers, 17 operational by end of year, 0 sunk so far. The arithmetic said Thomas would survive. But Cochrane was right. Numbers and reality weren't the same thing. Keller went back to his hotel, wrote Thomas a letter. Son, I hear there's a major operation coming. I can't tell you what I know, but I can tell you this. The ships we built will protect you. Trust your training. Trust your shipmates. Trust Yorktown. She's designed to bring you home, and the calculations say she will. He sealed the letter, mailed it. His arithmetic had said a lot of things over 3 years. Now it had to say one more thing, that his son would survive what was coming. Pacific Ocean, June 15th, 1944. Task Force 58 steamed west. 15 carriers, 7 battleships, 21 cruisers, 69 destroyers, 143 ships, the largest carrier task force ever assembled. On the flag bridge of USS Lexington, Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher watched the formation. Carriers spaced 3,000 yards apart, destroyers screening, cruisers positioned for anti-aircraft support. It was beautiful. It was deadly. It was mathematics-made steel. Aboard Yorktown, Ensign Thomas Keller sat in his ready room, VF5. 24 pilots, most with 6 months combat experience, some with a year. They'd been briefed. Japanese mobile fleet approaching. 9 carriers. Admiral Ozawa commanding. Estimated 470 aircraft. The arithmetic was in America's favor. But wars weren't fought on paper. Thomas checked his gear. Plotting board, knee pad, pencil, life vest, pistol, the rituals before combat. Around him other pilots did the same. Some talked, some joked, some were silent. Lieutenant Webb stood at the front. Listen up. Intelligence says the Japanese are going to attack from long range, 300 miles out. Their aircraft have longer legs than ours. They think they can hit us, and we can't hit back. Can we? No, but we don't need to. They have to come to us. And when they do, we'll be waiting. Radar will see them at 150 miles. We'll have 400 fighters in the air before they reach the task force. This isn't going to be a battle. It's going to be an execution. Someone laughed nervously. Webb's face was serious. I mean it. The Japanese think this is 1942. They think we're still learning. They're wrong. We have more carriers, more aircraft, more pilots, better radar, better tactics, better everything. The only question is how many of them we kill before they realize they've already lost. The ready room was silent. Thomas thought about his father, about the ships built in Newport News and Brooklyn and Philadelphia, about the calculations that said America would have 15 carriers by mid-1944. His father's arithmetic had been right. Now that arithmetic had to keep him alive. The klaxon sounded. Pilots, man your aircraft. Thomas stood, grabbed his helmet, walked out to the flight deck. The sky was clear, the sea was calm. Visibility unlimited. Perfect conditions for mathematics to prove itself. Philippine Sea. June 19th, 1944. 09:59 hours. Aboard USS Lexington, the radar operator stared at his scope. The green line swept again. On the third sweep, contacts appeared, multiple contacts, bearing 260, distance 150 miles. He keyed his intercom. Air plot, bogies inbound, bearing 260, distance 150, altitude Angels 20, count shows large formation, estimate 40 plus contacts. On the flag bridge, Admiral Mitcher received the report, looked at his operations officer. Raid 1, Japanese strike package. They're attacking from 300 miles. Think we can't reach them. Sir, do we launch a counter-strike? Negative. We kill this raid first, then we think about hitting back. Mitcher turned to his air operations commander. Launch all available fighters. I want 400 Hellcats in the air. Vector them to intercept. Destroy that raid before it reaches the task force. Aye, sir. Across Task Force 5815 carriers began launching fighters. The arithmetic was about to become visible. Yorktown's flight deck. 1,000 hours. Thomas sat in his Hellcat, engine running, prop turning, the deck vibrating beneath him. Around him 35 more Hellcats. Spotted. Ready. The yellow shirt was running between aircraft, checking, signaling. The airboss's voice crackled over the radio. All fighters. We have raid inbound, bearing 260, distance 140. You will be vectored to intercept. Kill them before they reach the task force. Thomas's section leader, Lieutenant Webb, came over the radio. VF5. This is what we trained for. Stay in formation. Follow vectors. Boom and zoom. Do not dogfight. Speed kills zeros. Use it. The catapult officer signaled. Thomas pushed the throttle forward. 2,000 horsepower. The Hellcat strained against the brakes. The officer crouched, touched the deck. The catapult fired. Acceleration crushed Thomas into his seat. The ocean rushed at him. The Hellcat clawed for air, climbed. 36 Hellcats launched from Yorktown in 12 minutes. Across the task force, the same scene repeated. Essex, Bunker Hill, Wasp, Hornet, Lexington, Enterprise. 416 fighters launched in 20 minutes. Japan had sent 69 aircraft in Raid 1. The mathematics were brutal. 25,000 feet, 1040 hours. Thomas flew in formation, 12 Hellcats, Webb's division. They'd been vectored west, climbing, following directions from the fighter direction officer aboard Lexington. The FDO's voice was calm, professional. Raid 1 bearing 270, distance 80 miles, maintain Angels 25. You will intercept in 10 minutes. Thomas scanned the sky. Clear, unlimited visibility, perfect day for killing. His radio crackled. Webb. There. 11 o'clock. Low. Thomas looked. Saw them. A formation of aircraft, 60 or 70. Zeros, Judys, Jills, flying in neat lines, not weaving, not scanning. They hadn't seen the Hellcats above them. Webb's voice. On my mark. Diving attack. Full throttle. Fire and brake. Do not engage. Do not turn with them. Thomas's hands tightened on the stick. Mark. 12 Hellcats rolled inverted. Dove, the airspeed indicator, wound up. 300 knots. 350. 400. The Japanese formation filled Thomas's windscreen. He picked a 0, centered it in the gun sight. The Pipper floated across the fuselage. Fired. 650 caliber machine guns. The Hellcat shuddered. Tracers reached out. The 0 exploded. Literally exploded. Wings separating from fuselage. Fire. Debris. Thomas pulled up. 6 Gs. The grey curtain. Blood pooling in his legs. Pull. Pull. Altitude. Around him the sky was chaos. Zeros burning. Diving. Spinning. Hellcats everywhere. Slashing through the formation. Japanese bombers jinking. Trying to evade. Failing. A Judy dove away trailing smoke. A Jill's wing came off. It tumbled. Fell. disappeared into the ocean 30,000 feet below. Thomas climbed, looked around. The Japanese formation was shredded, burning aircraft falling, Zeros trying to fight back, but outnumbered 6-1. The FDO's voice. Good hits, good hits. Continue engagement. Do not let them reach the task force. Thomas saw another Zero. Dove again. Fired. Missed. The Zero turned hard, trying to get on Thomas's tail. Thomas didn't turn with it, dove away, used speed, pulled up 3 miles away, climbed back to altitude. The Zero was still turning, looking for him. Didn't see the Hellcat behind it, didn't see the tracers until they cut through the cockpit. The Zero nosed over, fell. 10:50 hours, 20 minutes after first contact. The Japanese raid was destroyed. Of 69 aircraft, 45 were shot down before reaching Task Force 58. The remaining 24 broke through the fighter screen. They faced something worse. Aboard USS Essex, the anti-aircraft batteries tracked the incoming raid. 12 5-inch guns, dual-purpose, 44 40mm Bofors, 46 20mm Oerlikons. Every gun loaded with VT proximity fuses, a shell that exploded when it came within 70 feet of a target. No direct hit required. The gun director radar locked on. Calculated range, altitude, speed, bearing. The 5-inch guns fired. The sky filled with black bursts, shells detonating 50 feet from Japanese aircraft, shrapnel clouds. A Judy flew into one, disintegrated. The 40mm guns opened up. Streams of tracers, a wall of fire. A Jill attempting a torpedo run exploded in midair. The torpedo fell free, detonated when it hit the water. Another Judy dove on Essex, released its bomb. The bomb fell. Essex's guns tracked it. The bomb exploded 200 feet above the flight deck. Shrapnel pattered against the armor, did nothing. The Judy pulled up, tried to escape. 20mm fire caught it. The aircraft came apart, fell into the ocean 100 yards from Essex's stern. 11:07 hours. Raid 1 was finished. 69 aircraft launched. 8 returned to the Japanese carriers. 61 destroyed. 0 hits on American ships. On Building Way 11 in Newport News, the welders didn't know a battle was happening. They were building CV-31. Bonhomme Richard, 21st Essex-Class carrier. The keel had been laid 3 months ago. The hull was rising, frame by frame, section by section, the arithmetic continuing, the production line running. In Tokyo, Captain Nakajima received the first reports from Raid 1. Heavy losses, minimal damage to American task force, most aircraft destroyed by fighters. He wrote the numbers. 69 launched, 8 returned. Then Raid 2 launched, 109 aircraft. Nakajima watched the reports, waited. 1 hour later, Raid 2 destroyed, 97 aircraft lost, 6 damaged, 6 returned. He felt sick. 178 aircraft gone in 2 raids, against a task force that hadn't been touched. The Americans were calling it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The mathematics Nakajima had predicted 3 years ago were collapsing in real time. America didn't have 6 carriers. They had 15. They didn't have inferior pilots. They had radar-directed fighter screens that slaughtered Japanese formations before they reached the ships. And the ships themselves. Those Essex-Class carriers. Every report said the same thing. Heavy armor, massive anti-aircraft batteries, proximity fuses, damage control systems that saved ships that should have sunk. Japan couldn't sink them, couldn't even hit them. The war Nakajima thought Japan could win had already been lost. Lost in the shipyards of Newport News and Brooklyn. Lost in the calculations of men like Commander Keller, who understood that industrial wars were won by arithmetic. Lost before the first shot was fired. Yorktown, 1300 hours. Thomas landed. 6th flight of the day. The arresting wire caught his Hellcat, slammed him forward against the harness. The aircraft stopped. He was exhausted. 4 sorties, 7 kills. His hands shook on the stick. The yellow shirt signaled, "Taxi forward." Thomas released the wire, taxied to his parking spot, shut down, climbed out. His plane captain was there. Young kid, 19, from Oklahoma. "Sir, 7 kills." "7. Holy shit. Sir, holy shit." Thomas walked to the island, down the ladder, into the ready room. Other pilots were there, some sleeping, some drinking coffee, some staring at nothing. Webb stood at the front, looked at Thomas. "How many?" "7, sir." Webb nodded. "Good work. Get some food. Get some rest. We might launch again at sunset. Admiral wants to hit their carriers while they're recovering aircraft." Thomas sat. Someone handed him a sandwich. He ate without tasting it. Around him, pilots talked. "Did you see that Zero just exploded?" "I got 3 duties. They were just sitting there, like shooting ducks. They kept coming, even after we killed half of them." Brave, stupid, but brave. Thomas didn't talk, just ate, just thought. 7 men dead, by his hand, in one day. His father's arithmetic said this was victory. The arithmetic said Task Force 58 was winning, but 7 men were still dead. Later, he wrote his father. "Dad, we fought today. Big battle. Japan threw everything at us. We destroyed them. I got 7 kills. The ships held. Yorktown took some AA fire. Minor damage. Repaired in an hour." Your design works. Your compartmentalization works. Your calculations were right. "But Dad, I killed 7 men today, and I felt nothing except satisfaction at good shooting. What does that make me?" He didn't mail the letter, just put it in his locker. Some questions didn't have mathematical answers. The battle continued into the evening. At 16:21 hours, Mitchell made a decision. Launch a strike against the Japanese fleet. They were retreating west, 300 miles away, at extreme range. If the American aircraft launched now, they'd have to recover after sunset, in the dark. Many would run out of fuel, some would crash, but if they didn't launch, the Japanese carriers would escape. Mitchell ordered the launch. 216 aircraft, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, fighters. They flew west, into the setting sun, hunting. Thomas wasn't on this mission. VF-5 had flown too many sorties. The pilots were exhausted. Other squadrons took the strike. But he stood on Yorktown's flight deck, watched the aircraft disappear into the twilight. 1840 hours. The strike found the Japanese mobile fleet, 9 carriers, attempting to retreat, their flight decks empty, most of their aircraft destroyed during the day. The American dive bombers fell on them like hammers. USS Hornet's dive bombers hit the carrier Hio. 3 bombs. The hangar deck erupted. Aviation fuel ignited. Secondary explosions. Within minutes, Hio was burning from stem to stern. Torpedo bombers from Belleau Wood attacked Zuikaku, one of the 6 carriers that had struck Pearl Harbor. 2 torpedoes hit. The carrier listed. Damage control crews fought the flooding. The carrier Chiyoda took bomb damage, not fatal, but crippling. By 1900 hours, the strike was over. The American aircraft turned east, flying toward their carriers, fuel gauges dropping, darkness gathering. Many wouldn't make it. Aboard Lexington, Mitchell faced a choice. His aircraft were returning, in the dark, low on fuel. The task force was supposed to maintain light discipline. No lights. Submarines were a threat. But without lights, his pilots would never find the carriers. They'd ditch in the ocean. Hundreds of men. Mitchell gave the order. "Turn on the lights. All of them." Every ship in Task Force 58 illuminated. Searchlights, masthead lights, deck lights. The task force lit up like 15 cities in the middle of the Pacific. The submarines could see them. The risk was enormous. But Mitchell's pilots saw them too. Aircraft started arriving, low on fuel, some with engines sputtering, some ditching just short of the carriers, some landing on the wrong ships, some crashing on deck. 80 aircraft didn't make it back to their ships, but destroyers searched all night, picked up pilots, rescued air crews. By dawn, most of the downed aviators had been recovered. 16 men were lost, killed or missing, 16 American dead, 330 Japanese aircraft destroyed, 3 Japanese carriers sunk or crippled. The exchange ratio was 20 to 1. Norfolk, June 20th, 1944. Keller sat in his office, reading reports. The Battle of the Philippine Sea. Task Force 58 engaged Japanese mobile fleet. American victory. Minimal damage to American forces. The details were classified, but Keller had clearance. He read everything. 330 Japanese aircraft destroyed. 61 in Raid 1, 97 in Raid 2, 40 in Raid 3. The rest lost in confusion or night crashes. American losses. 29 aircraft, mostly operational, not combat. 3 Japanese carriers sunk. Hio, Taiho, Shokaku. 0 American carriers damaged. 0 Essex-Class carriers touched. His arithmetic had held. Keller's design, his calculations, his 20-month construction timeline, all validated in 1 day of combat. 13 Essex-Class carriers, 9 participated in the battle, all survived, all remained operational. The systematic competence he'd designed into every frame, every compartment, every system. It had worked. But his hands shook as he read the casualty lists. 16 American pilots killed or missing. He scanned the names: alphabetical, Davis, Edwards, Foster, Harrison, Keller, Thomas, Ensign, VF5. USS Yorktown. Missing. The paper fell from his hands. Missing. Not killed. Missing. He grabbed the phone, called the Navy Department, asked for casualty assistance, gave Thomas's name, service number, ship assignment. The voice on the other end checked, came back. Sir, Ensign Thomas Keller, reported missing after strike operations evening of June 19th. Aircraft believed ditched at sea. Search operations ongoing. Is he alive? Sir, we don't have that information. Is he alive? Sir, I don't know. Keller hung up, stared at his desk, at the blueprints, at the calculations, at 20 years of mathematics. His arithmetic had said Thomas would survive. The arithmetic had said the ships would protect him. The arithmetic had said. He put his head in his hands. Pacific Ocean. June 20th, 1944. Dawn. Thomas floated in his life raft, alone. The ocean stretched in every direction. No land, no ships, just water. His Hellcat had run out of fuel 40 miles short of Yorktown. He'd ditched. Good landing. The aircraft floated for 3 minutes, long enough for him to get into his raft. Then it sank. That was 8 hours ago. He'd seen searchlights during the night, destroyers looking for downed pilots. He'd fired his flares, waved his light, but the destroyers were miles away. Didn't see him. Now it was dawn. The sun rising, the ocean turning from black to blue. He was alone. His emergency rations. Water for 3 days, food for 5. After that. He tried not to think about after that. He thought about his father instead. Commander Willis Augustus Keller, the man who'd designed these carriers, who'd calculated that America could build 20 carriers by 1945, who'd bet his career on mathematics. Thomas wondered if his father's arithmetic had accounted for this, for pilots ditching in the middle of the Pacific, for sons floating alone while their fathers calculated victory. The arithmetic said America was winning. 13 carriers versus 9, 900 aircraft versus 400. The numbers were undeniable, but Thomas was still alone in a raft. He laughed. It came out bitter. Arithmetic didn't save you when your engine quit. He drifted. 1,000 hours. The sun was hot. Thomas rationed his water. 1 sip per hour. The rations said so. Mathematics again, even here. 1,100 hours. He saw something. Far away. A mast. A ship. He grabbed his signal mirror. Flashed it. Again. Again. The ship turned. Came closer. A destroyer. USS. The Sullivans. American flag. The destroyer pulled alongside. Sailors threw a line. Thomas grabbed it. They hauled him aboard. On deck, a pharmacist's mate checked him. Sunburn. Dehydration. Nothing serious. The destroyer's captain approached. Ensign, name and ship. Keller, Thomas, VF5, Yorktown. You're the 63rd pilot we've pulled out of the water. Lucky we found you. Thomas nodded. Couldn't speak. Relief was overwhelming. The captain smiled. We'll get you back to Yorktown. She's looking for you. They transferred him by Highline that afternoon. Back to Yorktown. Back to his ship. His squadron mates cheered when he came aboard. Webb grabbed him. Keller, thought we lost you. Almost did, sir. Your father's going to be relieved. We sent word you were missing. He probably knows by now. Thomas thought about his father. In Norfolk. Reading casualty reports. Seeing his name. He needed to write. Tell him he was alive. Tell him the arithmetic had worked after all. Because a destroyer had found him. A destroyer that was part of Task Force 58. Part of the massive fleet that Keller's calculations had predicted. The arithmetic hadn't saved Thomas directly, but it had put 60 destroyers in the ocean looking for downed pilots. Maybe that counted. Norfolk. June 21st, 1944. 0800 hours. Keller hadn't slept. Sat at his desk all night, staring at casualty reports, at his son's name. Missing. The phone rang. He grabbed it. Commander Keller, this is Navy Casualty Assistance. I'm calling about Ensign Thomas Keller. Keller's throat closed. Sir, Ensign Keller has been recovered. He was picked up by USS The Sullivans at 1000 hours June 20th. He's been returned to USS Yorktown. Minor injuries, dehydration. He's listed as fit for duty. Keller couldn't speak. Sir, are you there? Yes, thank you. He hung up, put his head down on his desk. His arithmetic had worked. Thomas was alive. But for 24 hours, Keller had faced the possibility that all his calculations, all his predictions, all his certainty, meant nothing if his son died. Arithmetic could predict victory, but it couldn't guarantee survival. That was the difference between theory and reality. He sat up, wiped his eyes, looked at the blueprints on his desk. CV-31, CV-32, CV-33. More carriers building, more arithmetic becoming steel. The war would continue. The battles would continue. Thomas would fly again, and Keller would keep calculating, keep designing, keep building, because his numbers still said they'd win. But now he knew the cost. Tokyo, August 1944. Captain Nakajima sat at his empty desk. The reports had stopped coming. There was nothing left to analyze. The mobile fleet no longer existed as a fighting force. 6 carriers remaining. Barely 50 operational aircraft between them. No trained pilots. No fuel for training. America had 15 carriers operational. 17 by September. 20 by end of year. The mathematics were final. Nakajima wrote his last intelligence assessment. The American Essex-Class carrier represents industrial capacity we cannot match. We predicted 6 carriers by 1944. They built 15. We predicted 30-month construction time. They achieved 20 months. We predicted limited air groups. They field 90 aircraft per carrier. We predicted conventional damage control. Their ships survive hits that would sink ours. The error in our analysis was fundamental. We calculated based on Japanese industrial capacity and assumed American capacity was comparable. It is not. It is overwhelming. The war cannot be won by conventional means. Kamikaze tactics may inflict casualties, but cannot reverse the mathematical imbalance. He signed it, submitted it. No one read it. The decision for kamikaze attacks had already been made. Japan was going to fight with suicide because arithmetic had failed. Nakajima requested transfer to a surface combatant. He didn't want to write reports anymore. Didn't want to calculate defeats. He wanted to fight, even if the numbers said it was futile. USS Essex. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay. The war was over. Essex sat at anchor. Around her hundreds of Allied ships, battleships, carriers, cruisers, destroyers, the fleet that had won the Pacific. On the flight deck, the crew assembled. Blues, dress uniforms. They watched the ceremony aboard USS Missouri. Japan signing surrender. Essex had survived. Every Essex-Class carrier had survived. 17 commissioned before war's end. 0 sunk, some damaged. Franklin, Bunker Hill. But none lost. His calculations had held. On the pier in Norfolk, Keller stood with Admiral Cochrane. They watched the ceremony on newsreel footage, saw MacArthur, saw Nimitz, saw the Japanese delegation. "Your son's out there," Cochrane said, "on Yorktown." "I know. He made it. Your arithmetic was right." "Not arithmetic, sir. Luck. Arithmetic said he'd probably survive. Luck made it certain." Cochrane smiled. "Commander, your design built 17 carriers in 4 years. All survived combat. All brought their crews home. That's not luck. That's engineering." Keller looked at the newsreel, at Essex in the background, at the ship he'd calculated in 1941. 24 Essex-class carriers built total, 17 before war's end. They'd flown over 41,000 sorties, lost hundreds of aircraft, thousands of men. But the ships themselves, the hulls, the numbers, they'd survived. "What now, sir? Now?" Cochrane looked at him. "Now we build a peacetime navy, and you design it." "Me, sir." "Your arithmetic won the war, Keller. Might as well let it win the peace." Commander Willis Augustus Keller retired from the Navy in 1946. Rear Admiral, Navy Distinguished Service Medal. Citation read, "For prediction and design excellence that fundamentally changed naval warfare." He returned to a quiet life, taught engineering at M1T, consulted occasionally for the Bureau of Ships, watched his design serve through Korea, Vietnam, the Cold War. The last Essex-class carrier, USS Lexington, retired in 1991, 49 years of service. She became a museum in Corpus Christi, Texas. Thomas Keller survived the war, 15 confirmed kills, 127 combat missions. He left the Navy in 46, became a commercial airline pilot, flew for 30 years, retired, lived quietly. Father and son rarely spoke about the war. Thomas didn't want to remember. Keller didn't want to calculate anymore. But in 1962, they visited Essex together. She was in dry dock, being modernized, angled flight deck, steam catapults, still serving. They walked the hangar deck. Thomas looked at his father. "You built this." "I calculated it. Other men built it." "You calculated I'd come home." Keller was quiet. Then, "I calculated probability. I didn't guarantee anything." "Close enough, Dad." They stood there, in the ship, in the arithmetic made steel, in the design that had brought thousands of men home. Keller died in 1968, 70 years old. Heart attack. Quick. At his funeral, they read the citation from his medal, about prediction, about design, about changing warfare. They didn't read his 1940 report, the one predicting 20 carriers, the one no one believed. But Thomas had a copy, framed in his house. At the top, his father's handwriting, "If war begins in 1941, American shipyards can produce 20 to 24 fleet carriers by 1945. At the bottom, Thomas had added one line in his own handwriting, "He was right, and it saved my life." Captain Nakajima Tadashi survived the war, returned to Yokohama, worked as a shipping clerk, never spoke of his intelligence work. His wife never knew he'd predicted Japan's defeat 3 years before surrender. He died in 1972, age 70. His reports were declassified in 1995. Historians read them, saw his March 1944 assessment. American carrier strength now exceeds projections by 300%. He'd been right. He'd told his superiors. They'd ignored him. Mathematics didn't care about Bushido. The lesson isn't about ships. It's about mathematics versus assumption. Japan assumed American industrial capacity was limited. They calculated based on their own capabilities. They predicted 6 carriers. Keller calculated based on American industrial potential. He predicted 20 carriers. Japan was wrong by a factor of 4. That error cost them the war, because wars between industrial powers aren't won by courage, or tactics, or even technology. They're won by arithmetic, by men who can look at shipyards and steel mills and calculate what's possible before anyone else believes it. Yamamoto said he could run wild for 6 months. He did, for 7 months. Then 17 Essex-Class carriers showed up, and mathematics ended the argument, not with debate, with 27,000 tons of steel, multiplied by 17. That's 459,000 tons of carriers Japan never expected. 459,000 tons that proved Commander Willis Augustus Keller understood something fundamental. Industrial wars are won by those who can count, and Keller counted better than anyone.